welcome our next TED-like talk speaker.
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here in Bangalore with all of you. But I have something to tell you. I don't like boats. I really, truly despise boats. And I literally feel sick as the boat is pulling away from the dock. No joke. I am not exaggerating. Big boats like this, shiny and beautiful. No, not like this. Nor like this, the boat that I took called the Super Dong. And that was on a journey all the way to Condal Island. And that is off the coast of the Mekong Delta. And it's this beautiful island, which is like a paradise for motorcycle drivers to wind through the roads. It really is quite exquisite. You can see here, though, that that voyage is a multi-hour smashing through waves in the ocean excursion with about 100 other incredibly seasick passengers in a metal cylinder. It was absolutely horrid. We both, my buddy and I, got on the ground, and I can assure you, halfway through the trip, he did not have that face of optimism. It looked very grim. But when we got to the dock, we were literally kissing the ground until we realized we were on an island, and the only way back was another trip on the Super Dong. However, the motorbike trip was amazing. Amazingly enough, not too far after this trip, my team and I won a new project. And amazingly enough, it was for me to be the lead designer for a major, one of the largest boating manufacturers in the world, to build a fishing boat website to sell their boats. Me. I know nothing about boats, and I truly know nothing about fishing. What a combo deal. But I think I'm talking to the right audience when I say that a lot of us encountered this exact problem. I can imagine, and I have some great certainty, that many of the people in the room here work for IT services, agencies, do some contract work, freelance work. And the beauty of that, the amazing opportunity that gives us is the variety of things that we can design. It's just such a wonderful gift. But it also presents us challenges. We're facing the unfamiliar so many times as we shift between projects and customers and clients and industries, all these things, different countries, different form factors, things that we may be unfamiliar with. But we really need to figure out a way how to become familiar with the unfamiliar and have this in something that is reliably repeatable so that we can do this over and over again. And what I'm here today to talk to you about is I've talked with hundreds and hundreds of candidates in interview sessions. And when I ask them about this kind of phenomenon, I can distill down to you these 4 things that they do when they're presented with this issue. One is they hit Google, boats, and see what comes up. Number 2, a competitor analysis. And typically this consists of maybe 3 or 4 direct competitors to the company that they're working for. Number 3, stakeholder interviews. So they're talking to various people in the organization. That's great. Maybe talking to the executives, maybe to the sales team, maybe they're talking product owners, support, any number of layers of the company. That's great. And then lastly, they're talking to the users. They're doing questionnaires and interviews. That's fantastic. But I don't think that really gives you the proper picture you need to immerse yourself and have a genuine feel for that product category that you're so unfamiliar with. But what I'm here today to talk to you about is how do we create a little more structure around handling this exact phenomenon? How can we become more resourceful and use that so we have greater clarity about what we're designing? So what I'm proposing to you is that we're basically doing a fact-finding mission. And when it's a mission, it's got a little more strength to it, doesn't it? And so you're going out on the web and trying to uncover all kinds of things, as much as you can get your hands on, in the light of being someone in that product category. And in this process, you're finding all these nuggets. So the deeper you dig, more nuggets you're going to pull out. And so by the end of it, you have this growing understanding and exposure as if you were someone that had used that product category for a long time. And so it's a breadth and a broadening, but it's also a depth of the content that you're trying to consume. And through this, you have a much more authentic picture of this category. So you can see here, you're kind of looking at it in two sides. One is the industry itself. What's the value proposition, your addressable market, how does this make money, what are your challenges and risks? That sounds a lot like a business canvas model, doesn't it? On the other side of it, it's really the consumer. And it's all of what are the consumers seeing and feeling and hearing and thinking and saying, and the who, what, why, where, how of their lives in relation to this product. Another way that I can look at it is there's two sides of this fence, really. The first is the consumer life cycle, and that's how companies look at it to acquire customers, get them to buy things, and keep buying things, and tell other people about how great their product is. On the other side of this fence is basically the buyer's journey. And so that's where you're really going in, and you're saying, hey, there's this awareness, I'm suddenly interested in buying a boat. And then there's this consideration phase where you're trying to pull in as much information as you can as a buyer to make informed decisions. And then the decision, time to pull the trigger, narrow down those options and spec shop till you're about to die, and then pull the trigger and buy the boat that you want. But I've always added on things like ownership, because trust me, if you buy a boat, the purchasing does not stop there. It just gets more. And then after that, you really become a promoter. And so there seems to be this fence separating all of these. Actually not. Look at that. They line up pretty well. I mean, right across the whole thing. Maybe that fence doesn't actually exist. But it's good to keep this in mind when you're trying to structure how you're going to go out there, because each of these steps on both sides requires its level of research and resources to do immersive research. Now, I really love mind maps. There's such a beautiful way to look at a topic and start to spread it out and branch it out into other ideas and digging into each of the topics and creating this tree effect. And the visualization, I think all of us can relate to. And so the first of three that I want to show you is usage factors. Because when you start going in, you're suddenly thinking, hey, I want to buy a boat. I want boating to be part of my life. There's all of these kinds of factors that they're thinking about in their mind that you should be thinking about as the designer. Where am I going to use this? How am I going to use it? Who's going to use it with me? All of these things start to come into view, and they're going to shape that buyer's journey moving forward. The other is ownership factors. In a boat, there is an unlimited number of factors about owning and maintaining, lots of maintaining, of a boat. All of these things about transportation and towing it, storage, marinas to dock it at, fuel and more fuel. All these things about licensing and safety, all these things are coming into view as they're contemplating how they're going to move forward with buying a boat. And what's interesting about all of those is that you can keep branching those out as your research digs deeper, and it can become this beautiful mind map of things that you have to consider and know. The last one is the product factors. So when they start going through that buyer's journey and they're getting to decision time, what they're really doing is spec shopping. And so what is the product that you have in hand? All of these spec shop things that they're going to compare, you need to know them well, because your site has to sell on those things exquisitely well so that when they're comparing that to a competitor's option, you have the upper advantage. Now, I don't think anyone buys a boat in isolation. There may be few, but it's very rare. And so that primary user actually has all of these other influencing people around them that weigh in on buying that boat. And your designers need to consider this. When we started doing the research, Bob doesn't go out and just buy a boat one day and come home with it on the back of his car. Most of the time, what we found out is this was a multi-generational thing. His parents had it, grandparents had it, and likely his son or daughter will have a boat. This is something to consider. But all of these other things, work colleagues, sporting teammates, all of them are weighing in on what boat he should get, what they should do with the boat, and so forth. And I know there's a lot of debate about persona profiles, but I think they're fantastic when you're trying to crash course yourself on a whole product category, because it's a lot better than trying to look at your biases and assumptions and using that as a starting point. Case in point, when I talked to Google and I asked Google Images to show me pictures of captain of a boat, 30 out of the 35 are like some sailor Captain Highliner dude. Mid-Journey, when I asked them to draw a picture of a captain of a boat, all 20 out of 20 were sailor dude. And so if sailor dude is your assumption of who's going to be purchasing this in isolation, you'd be sadly wrong. Because actually, the target audience ended up being a middle-aged man, white-collar job, six-figure income, 3 or 4 member family. I can tell you that the wife and the kids and their extended family had a huge contribution into the decision-making process. And another thing to think about is there's this different levels and degrees of commitment that start to gradually increase as they become more vested in the idea of owning a product, starting with just being interested and getting familiarized with it, learning and going and trying to consume as much information as they can and starting to talk to people. But after that, you start to become an enthusiast. You kind of start to know the specs and the models and kind of the latest stuff that's out there, and you're now maybe joining some kind of a club. Maybe you have more opportunities to go on other people's boats until eventually you get your own boat, and then you're invested. You now have a much higher degree of understanding, and it's a part of your life until a point where you actually kind of become professional. And I don't say that in a way of like they're making livelihood from it, but it's so integrated into their life and they're using it so much, they've become professional at using boats. And so I want to show you where do we go to get information, but very first is that competitor analysis, and how do we structure looking at that? Because when we're talking to those people doing the interviews, yes, direct competitors, that's fantastic. Who are your top 3 or 4? And analyze them deeply. But there's more layers to that, I think. Why not look at other boats? I might be doing a website on fishing boats, but why wouldn't I look at power boats or sailboats and see what those parts of the market are doing and adopt things that make sense and maybe add some innovation to the category I'm working on? But you can pull it out a little further. Why not look at jet skis? Yes, it's not technically a boat, but it was amazing when we started to go into Ski-Doo and Jet Ski and all of these websites. They were innovating. They had some of the best ideas. We can even branch it further, time permitting, and say, you know what? Snowmobiles, campers, ATVs, they're all recreational vehicles, and somebody that owns a boat may very well own these as well. And then lastly, and possibly the most important, never confine your competitor analysis to your local market. It's amazing when you pull out and look at what the globe offers, looking at Asia, looking at Europe, the Middle East, what are all they doing for your product category? Not only that, but if you put it into some kind of affinity map to say, this is my category here that I'm working on, looking at the outer edges, what are the extremities beyond what I'm focusing on, and looking at them. Because There may be not a lot in common with kayaks, but again, the value of just knowing that they're there and where you're positioned in the overall market is very important. And not only that, why not understand where you are in the market and make a conscientious effort of looking above and below your market tier? Because looking below it, you're seeing how they're showing high level of value. And above that, they're showing high degree of craftsmanship and quality. And wouldn't you want to take both of those and put them into your market segment? Now let's have a look at some sources where you can start really digging in and finding things based on what a normal person owning a boat would probably do themselves. And the first is our friend YouTube. God, I love YouTube. If you signed up to the top 10 channels and subscribed to them, what do you get access to? Thousands and thousands of hours of product reviews, news, industry insights, experts, tutorials, buyer's guides, unlimited number of product reviews, in fact. Wouldn't you want to just sign up to those top 10 and just go through some of it to get a feel for what your consumers are consuming? Podcasts. Many of you are going to be traveling every day. Why would you not go into Podcasts app, type boating, and see the unlimited number of podcasts about boats? And so you can see this gentleman here runs a podcast. He's interviewing hundreds of experts about their various niches of boating, just like that. Magazines. I assure you, not many of you actually gone out and purchased a physical magazine, but guess what? They're still alive and well online. And this website here, for $30 for a month, you go in there and has an unlimited number of magazines about boats. Not only that, all of the back issues. So we're talking thousands of pages of content that boat owners, enthusiasts would have consumed, you now have access to for $30. That's it. Not only that, I know everyone's reluctant to read books now, but this book here, over 650 pages with 300 essential powerboat tips and things that they recommend for $16, digital and searchable. The product category that you're working on will have something like this for that category. Organizations, just like this one, trade organizations and associations and all of these different groups that represent different industries all have published data. For example, here, the International Boat Industry website. And so now you have access to market reports, product reports, sector information, and all the new technologies. It is absolutely incredible. Because I'm dealing with fishing boats, Recreation Boating and Fishing Foundation, and when I started to dig into their freely available, publicly information, what did I find? I literally hit the jackpot. PDFs with dozens of pages of statistics and demographical breakdowns and all of this information about what are the barriers to getting into fishing. It was just this, like I literally hit the jackpot. Just incredible, because I went out there and I looked for it. Now, in terms of events like this one, so many of them are recorded and put on the organization's website or YouTube. Webinars where experts are talking about various aspects of boating in great detail, or buyer's guides like this Bhutan boat. And there's so many boat shows happening across North America, and you may say to me, John, I can't just get a ticket and go to America and look at these boat shows where there's 1,000 exhibiting brands. And I say, okay, that's true. However, when I went onto the Seattle Boat Show website, guess what I saw? The exhibitor list. All of these are links to every manufacturer and association and club that you could possibly imagine. And community, Facebook, LinkedIn, Quora, Reddit. Who uses discussion forums anymore? However, this discussion forum here has almost 6 million threads of information that you can use for your project. Now, I want to leave you with this. This is basically what I use as a product category ecosystem canvas. Very simple. It's all the things that we've looked at today from the consumer perspective and from the customer perspective. And you know what you do? Put it in a FigJam board. Just like in Figma, you're on it every day. Put this whole layout into FigJam and have your team building and accessing it. It's a beautiful way to do it. Any category, you can do what we did today. And I'll wrap it up with this. When I went to Config conference, they invited me on a boat cruise in the San Francisco Bay. And you know what? It was pretty damn good. Thank you.